Hey, how's your week going so far? My name is Alicia.
I'm Nicole.
Let's take a little time away from the hustle and bustle of adulting and let's indulge our curiosities just for a bit and talk about killers, psychos, and the unexplained.
Today we are venturing to Kentucky to talk about Levi Boone Helm and Larry Lamont White.
Welcome to Kentucky, home of Levi Boom Helm, aka the Kentucky Cannibal.
Ugh.
The West, yes. We're going to the 1800s here, early 1800s. So, the Wild West, as you can imagine, was a very harsh and violent place where law and order was often absent or corrupted, where people were trying to exist amongst violence, dangerous living conditions, and diseases. Every man and family for themselves. During this time, many people were wanderers and would travel place to place in search of wealth or just a better life. The California Gold Rush, the wild frontier, bandwagons, and the real life Oregon Trail. I remember playing that as a child. Born in Lincoln County, Kentucky on January 28th, 1928, to Joseph and Nancy Helm in a household of 11 children. His parents traveled to Montana when Boone was young in search of a better life. His parents were supportive and caring. They were well liked in the community, and they were just all around pretty good people. Boone, however, was quite the bully. He enjoyed fighting and knife throwing. Boone was an avid horse rider and would like show off his skills frequently. It's said that one time when Boone had an altercation with the sheriff and had acquired some charges of disruption or resisting arrest or something like that. But anyway, Boone actually rode his whole horse right into the courthouse to confront the judge and aggressively dispute the charges. So much so that the judge must have just been stunned enough, like he just cleared the charge. Like, whoa, bro, that's quite dramatic display. I'll clear your name, just get you and that entire horse out of here. After Boone rides the horse off into the sunset or whatever, moving on with his life, the end. Just kidding. That would have had that would have been a cinematic ending. However, it gets worse. January 5th, 1851, Boone, at almost 23 years old, married 17-year-old Lucinda Frances Browning. Soon after, she ended up having his daughter, Lucy. Boone was a very heavy drinker and would be abusive towards Lucinda and Lucy. Lucinda divorced Boone, which I guess during that time she needed like a whole petition and everything. So it must have been pretty bad for her to go through all these steps to get this divorce. Boone's father actually ended up paying off like all the divorce costs and financially taking care of Lucinda and their baby Lucy. However, it actually ended up bankrupting the family. But I mean, that's just how his parents were. They were good people. Too bad Boone wasn't. Since he broke his parents and the California gold rush was a thing, Boone decided to go pursue his fortune. Boone's cousin, Littleberry Shute, was going to go with him on this California journey. But I guess he thought about it and was like, never mind. I mean, Boone was a real jerk, so I really can't blame the guy for not wanting to travel with a guy that's obviously not the greatest companion and would probably end up leaving you for dead. But I guess that pissed Boone right off because he stabbed his cousin in the chest before taking off to Cali.
Oh.
Yeah, like I'm not sure if he died or he was just injured, but Littleberry's brother and his friends ended up going off after Boone, and they did actually catch up with him. But I guess when they dragged Boone into court, he was just acting so crazy and erratic that instead of taking him to jail, the judge just sent him to an insane asylum. Yeah. Boone escaped, of course, and went back on his way to Cali, to go get that gold. I guess when he got to the asylum, he stopped the crazy act and was actually helping out the nurses and the doctors, just being like a good citizen. And the guards actually felt comfortable enough that they would take him outside on walks, like out by the woods or out in the woods. because he's, such good behavior, they were worried about it. Well, apparently that's how he escaped. Just took off and ran on the guard one day. Skirt, gone. Boone had quite the journey to California, though. Another prospector that was traveling picked him up to help him out. That was a mistake. Boone robbed and murdered him. Now he has like $1,400, and Boone is still traveling and robbing and murdering several other people. One of these men happened to be a hunter that he had seen while he was hunting. So since he was hunting and he didn't see any animals, so he didn't shoot any animals, so he had no dinner, right? So I guess he was like really hungry that day, and since he didn't like kill a deer or nothing, he decided to go ahead and shoot the hunter that he's seen, chop him up, cook him over the bonfire, and human was on the menu that evening.
Oh.
It said he slept very well that evening and got up in the morning back on his way. Eventually, he did reach San Francisco. However, due to him being a murderer, an alcoholic, insane asylum escapee, he would actually sit at these bars while he was drinking alcohol and brag about what he did to like other customers that were there. So he did gain quite a few vigilante groups and law enforcers out there looking for him. So he kind of decided, he scrapped the California gold idea. It's too hot. Too many people are coming after him. And decided to travel to Utah for silver. Get him off his trail. He did gain other companions on his travel, probably with all his talks of silver and making it rich. These men wouldn't make it to Utah, though. Well, in their physical form, I should say. Anyhow, as they traveled, they ended up being chased by Native Americans, and they chased them like deep into the wilderness. They were traveling with minimal provisions through a very harsh winter. They found a shack and they tried to wait out like the worst of the cold. However, the men went through what little food they had and they ended up eating their horses, and they made some snowshoes from the hides, and they were desperate. The men walked out into the storm and decided to try to make it to the next town. The men would die as they traveled, one by one, being left on their trail, until there was only one man named Burton left, and Boone, of course. Burton apparently was worn down and exhausted. He fell down, unable to go further, and he ended up passing out. What awoke him, you ask? Oh, only having his leg sawed off by Boone. Watching Boone cook and eat his leg in horror. Horror. Can you imagine waking up to that? Just kind of open your eyes. This man's chopping off your leg and just cooking it over a bonfire. Come on. So he was watching Boone cook and eat his leg in horror as he's coming and going in and out of consciousness. Now, it has been said that Boone actually gave Burton a piece of his own cooked flesh, and Burton ate it before shooting himself in the head. But now that Burton is dead, Boone went ahead, lopped off the other leg, wrapped it in a cloth, and tossed it over his shoulder for a snack later. And on his way he went. As Boone traveled, he would murder those who befriended him or would take them in. He ended up making his way back to Montana, where he was finally apprehended. On January 14th, 1864, at 35 years old, in front of a large crowd, Levi Boonhelm was hanged, allegedly exclaiming, quote, "Every man for his principles. Hurrah for Jeff Davis. Let her rip," unquote. Then he jumped off the hangman's box before they could kick it away. Boone is buried in Boot Hill Cemetery in Virginia City, Montana. So Jeff Davis refers to Jefferson Davis, who was the president of the Confederate States at the time. Now, as far as how many people Boone actually murdered, it's quite hard to know since Old West times and people just kind of disappeared and were just murdered on the daily. And it wasn't really a big deal since this was just everyday life. But for the amount of people looking for him and the wanted posters and the several vigilante groups all searching for him, it had to be a lot. He just had to be slaying people left and right, right?
Right.
But that puts an end to this awful case.
Mm, I
Yes, I know. Can you imagine?
You're so self-absorbed.
What is that? Poor Burton.
You're just so self-absorbed that you don't give two shits about anyone around you.
Oh no, absolutely not. He was going to go make his fortune no matter what he had to do on the way there several times over because there was the gold, then there was the silver, and then it was just him wander.
I just don't even.
Yeah,
Why didn't you eat the fucking people that died along the way?
I'm not sure. They just left them basically where they died. They would let them lay where they died. I don't remember how the saying goes, but basically they would lie where they died down the trail as they're going.
I wonder if he just thought people would think he was crazy and they would kill him, so he didn't want to.
He had to wait till there was only one left.
And then you don't even wait till he dies, you wait till he passes out.
Yeah. And then he offered him his own, like, here you go, Burton. Here's a bite of your own leg, sir. Yeah. Crazy times.
Okay. Well, Larry Lamont White was born March 30th, 1958 in Louisville, Kentucky. White is a serial killer who fatally shot three women from June to July of 1983. On June 4th, 1983, Pamela Armstrong went out to get food stamps. She entered an unknown man's car, and an hour later, her body is found in an alley on Beach Street. She had been shot in the head, and no one knew why, since all her money, her driver's license, and other valuables were left on her person. A week later, 21-year-old Yolanda Sweeney was seen leaving a nightclub in the company of an unknown black male. 2 days later, her body was found in a backyard on Greenwood Avenue. She was also shot in the head. Sweeney was naked from the waist down, and her purse had been stolen. So, like, slightly different scenario, so they haven't put the dots together yet. The final confirmed victim was found on July 7th when 22-year-old Deborah Miles' body was found by her friends in her bedroom. So they, like, went to check on her because they ain't heard from her, and she's dead in her own bedroom. She had also been shot in the head. At this point, the police suspect the homicides might be connected. With little physical evidence, they were stumped. On August 9th, White was arrested by police and charged with the murders of Sweeney and Miles and the attempted murder of a 30-year-old woman he had encountered near Dixie Highway on March 15th. Now, White had threatened this woman at gunpoint into his car, drove to Dumsnall Street, and then he sexually assaulted her, robbed her of $3.50 and a bucket of chicken. Girl, I almost couldn't even say it.
$3.50 and a bucket of chicken.
Yeah, I was like, $3.50. Who the hell robs somebody of $3.50? A child? And then I was like, a bucket of chicken. Okay, I feel bad. I feel bad the woman was sexually assaulted. I do. But a bucket of chicken, sir?
He did.
He was charged with murder, first-degree robbery, first-degree burglary, and unlawful imprisonment. Another woman, Bernice Adams, came forward and said White attacked her in her home on June 28th using the alias Larry Griffin. He gained entry by needing to use the phone, which was, common. Like, stuff would happen. We didn't have cell phones, and there wasn't phone booths everywhere. However, once he gained access to the house, he threatened her with a gun. Before White could do anything, she managed to lock herself in her own bathroom, and he took off. Prosecutors found his pawned .38, whose bullets matched the killings, clothes stained with blood, Sweeney's blood, which will come into play later, and White's previous conviction of sexual assault, and his confession of the murders. So that's what they took to trial to get him convicted, okay? That was
Yeah.
their evidence.
Didn't rob all of them though. So yeah.
He was quickly found guilty. He was sentenced to death. Kentucky's Supreme Court wouldn't deem White intellectually disabled. Apparently, if your IQ is below 70, you can be deemed intellectually, what do I call it? Intellectually disabled. That's
So
probably the way we say it now.
it's okay to kill people if you're intellectually disabled?
No, but apparently it means you can't get the death sentence.
Oh.
Does not mean you can't go to court. But since his IQ score at age 12 was 76, and you needed to be below a 70 in Kentucky, they were denying him the reversal on the death sentence. However, the U.S. Supreme Court overthrew that 8 months later, stating, any rule of law that states a criminal defendant automatically cannot be intellectually disabled and precluded from execution simply because he or she has an IQ of 71 or above, even after an error adjustment for statistics, is unconstitutional. So that, and the fact that they questioned him without a lawyer and he had pending arraignments. So he already was like all these other charges and they didn't put them all together in the same court thing, right? So they're just sitting there with these pending arraignments. They questioned him without a lawyer because they did all of that. In the end, the confession would be scrapped, allowing White to plead guilty for a lesser sentence of 29 years imprisonment with a chance of parole. So he would be released in 2001. After his release in 2001, White repeatedly was arrested for misdemeanors, including drinking and driving, possession for marijuana, and attempted theft. In 2006, he was convicted and sentenced to 15 years for possessing a firearm, violating his parole, and he was sentenced for release in 2016. However, a year later, he was DNA linked to the Armstrong murder. Remember, I said that bloody garment would come in play later? And charged with Armstrong's murder. White was found guilty and sentenced to death for it. He refused to attend the sentencing, and they are still trying to reduce his sentence to this day.
So now let's finish this off with a little of the unexplained. Kentucky's cryptid creature is the Pole Lick Monster, also known as the Goat Man. This legendary part man, part goat, and part sheep hybrid is said to live beneath a railroad bridge in Pope Lick Creek in Louisville, Kentucky. It is said that this goat man lures trespassers by hypnosis or voice mimicry onto the bridge to meet their death via train. Like it hypnotizes people to walk or stand like in front of moving trains to get hit and die.
Oh.
Yeah. But sometimes when it's not doing that, the goat man will jump down from the bridge onto the roofs of passing cars. So moving vehicles. Legend says that this hybrid creature was actually a circus freak who vowed revenge after being mistreated. The goat man escaped the circus after a train that was transporting them derailed. Others say this creature is really the twisted reincarnation of a farmer who sacrificed goats in exchange for satanic powers. Either way, I wouldn't want to meet them. Have you ever heard of the Pope Lick Monster, aka the Goat Man? Let us know. We are interested.
That one's kind of freaky.
Yeah, that was a good one. That was a good one.
I was like, jump on my roof of my car while I'm driving. What? Well, we would like to thank you for joining us on our discoveries of Kentucky this week. Please join us next week while we travel to Louisiana. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss our adventures next week into Killers, Psychos, and the Unexplained.
Bye bye.
Bye!